This portion of the CU podcast is brought to you by Retroware. Ian, you know that lovable nerd?
The angry video game nerd?
Yeah, you know, he gets angry, he plays terrible games all the time. Well, he's back with an all-new action platforming adventure of his own. It's the Angry Video Game Nerd 8-Bit. Whoa! Play through 7 action-packed levels inspired by classic retro-style gameplay and chock full of signature AVGN humor. Face off against iconic enemies and relive the nerd's most legendary battles. It even includes live-action cutscenes, so it feels like you're playing an AVGN episode. That's pretty cool.
That is. Currently, the modern retro version is available on Steam, Switch, Xbox, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. At limitedrungames.com, you can snag the physical PlayStation 5 or Switch version of this modern retro release. But there's more. You can pre-order an actual working NES cartridge. Now that's nifty. Of the game produced by Megacat Studios. Limited Run has a standard cartridge version available and 2 different limited color cartridges in a Super Mecha Baddie Blue and Nerd Rage Red. Sorry, the legendary gold is sold out.
So let's get angry and have fun on both modern platforms and on your NES with the Angry Video Game Nerd 8-Bit. I was at PRGE, and boy, did news get out quick. I knew this console, we'll just say prototype early version, was going to be there, but it was presented to me almost as a prize, almost as like
as a cat bringing you a kill,
almost as like, yeah, like a cat bring the mouse to your door,
right?
So I did get a chance to be around and handle what was purported to be a game console that was going to be released called the Intellivision Amico at some point in time. That was announced 7 years ago.
Never heard of it.
So I won't say who owns it, but people on the inside know who got from the auction that happened a couple months ago. And so I got a chance to not play the thing on a monitor or anything, but look at the console, feel how the construction was. More importantly, look at that albatross of a controller and feel how it was and how it felt. Mm-hmm. So I'll go over that, Ian, and I'll answer any questions you might have. So that controller is a chunky controller. There's weight to that thing. You can kill someone with that controller. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Really? It's heavy.
It is heavy. It's a little bit heavy.
And I wonder if that's because it's full of like hacked together prototype parts and not like a streamlined board.
I don't know.
Anyway,
but there was two controllers there, 2 Amico controllers. There was the black one, and then that gray one was mostly, you know, that was partially 3D printed and then it mocked together with things. The disc D-pad, speaking of disc pad, felt almost exactly how I thought it would feel. It was, you know, a little click in, it spun, even though I thought the spinning happened way too easily than I thought it would for amount of force. Like there was almost no give for it to spin.
Did they think that people were just going to rotate this thing and then push down and leave it like a jog? A jog with like a... Because what it's making sound like is like almost like a Max.
Yes, but the Max... You position it and then press in.
No, I know. They're both off. It's an awful controller, but...
Don't you make fun of my Max. Max has its place in the universe.
But I'm just literally thinking like a jog wheel on a stereo that's got like an indent in it. Like it's like they wanted you to whip your thumb around.
But if you're playing a platformer or like Fox and Force, you don't want it to move.
No.
You want your thumb to stay on the left and not spin by accident. That to me was weird.
Yeah,
that was
strange.
Weird. So I think when it's pressed in, it wasn't going to do it as easily. But the fact that it was like barely touching it, it was like able to spin. That was weird. Obviously, I couldn't really look at the screen that much. The screen is a crappy older LCD screen. We know the resolution was not great on it. Whatever. That's the screen is like over 12-year-old technology or whatever it was. That screen. The buttons on the top felt almost exactly how I thought they would feel. The action buttons. They were little chintzy little click, 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 like no feedback.
Yeah.
No, you know how
like dead buttons.
Yes. You know how great the NES buttons are when you push in. There's that little goosh give when it comes out. It's like you're hitting something. It's impacting and semi bouncing back a little bit. It's hard to explain unless you open it up to see how well. Thanks, Lance Barr. How well they did that on purpose for like you get feedback when it's pushed in when it comes out on an NES controller.
Yeah, you don't get any response. They're just unresponsive.
On this, click, like that little soft little give, click, like not no click sound, but like Terrible. Terrible for an action game to have buttons like that. Terrible to have a trigger type thing for a button you're going to constantly be pressing to be shooting or for jumping. Terrible. That's why we always said you need face buttons on a modern console controller. No ifs, ands, or buts. You need a couple of face buttons minimum. Nintendo never even got away from that, even with the Switch. Even with the Wii. There was face buttons on the Wiimote.
Not enough, but they were there.
You had a couple.
Yeah.
A couple to get you through the night.
Okay, I have two questions real quick. Wait, before I forget them, before they slip. Well, the one can wait. Do you think that rotating thing, remember how I was like, it's going to be like a potentiometer or like a paddle? I thought that would be something that, they could use for a game like Breakout. Do you think that maybe Tommy had that intention and realized it was too expensive and that's why they didn't do it, but they had already made the molds? Because I'm dying to figure out a reason why anyone would think the spinning knob would be a good idea. I'm wondering if it was a leftover remnant from a better idea that just never got used.
That they figured we're never going to use this as much as we thought.
Or it's going to make the controller too expensive.
They claim like 64 directions on that, which probably is not even accurate. It's probably less than that.
Right. I just wonder why it was even there to begin with, because it doesn't make any sense.
I think probably because, it's a disc on the Intellivision, even though that wasn't spinning though on the original television. I don't know, Ian. I can't give you an answer for that. I think it's just over-engineered nonsense.
All right, and then the other one.
I think they could have probably undid that. That's probably not all the guts. They could have probably just got rid of that.
Well, they probably could have reprinted or remolded just one piece to keep it from spinning, put a notch in there or something. So why wouldn't they have?
Sure, have a lock on. I don't know, but I just think that was nonsense.
Last one before I forget. Did the Intellivision Sprint controller feel nicer than this controller?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So he made the Intellivision controller worse.
No,
is what I'm trying to say.
I'm not even trying to be funny.
No, I know. So he took the original idea and somehow made it a worse controller.
I mean, the action buttons on the Intellivision controller stink. They're more responsive than on the Amico controller.
Right. And
it makes sense for where they are to have them like here. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, it's a little bit awkward versus a new controller, but you can, it makes sense for how it was back then. That's how there was no gamepad yet. Like like Nintendo's D-pad wasn't a thing yet, a control pad. So no, it makes sense. So I look at the console, Ian. So this thing's a nightmare. This controller, not even knowing all the parts that go into this, the heft on this thing, Ian, and the fact that we know how over-engineered it was. The thing I'm thinking about, what happens if something happens with the LCD? What happens if this goes wrong? There's so many parts on this fucking thing that I could only imagine if there was an issue with one or more of these things after it was in people's hands, what a nightmare it would have been. Because you probably would have to replace the whole thing. You probably could have gotten fixed easily. There's just too many pieces that can go wrong on this thing. There's just too many.
Right. I mean, when you think about it's there's a reason why screens don't go on many controllers.
I didn't talk about like there's a fucking speaker on the thing or whatever, or the LEDs. I didn't get to see like all these other little shit things that you don't need on a controller.
Yeah, all the bells and whistles that he thought was going to sell the thing, but actually add nothing to it but cost.
Balloons that cost over on console $150, and there's no real use for this stuff.
Tell me, why don't you use a normal controller? Well, because the games are being made specifically for this controller. Big thumbs up there, buddy. I think that was one of the first things he said where I really realized he was just talking shit.
Oh, and that was our back and forth on Twitter. When I said, really, Tommy, you can't do your modern missile command on the Switch? Like, are you serious? Like,
well, that was one of those things where even early on, he was like, I can't tell you because it's secret. And it's like, no, it's because you literally don't, you're trying to find something that can only be done.
I've ever did the facetious thumbs up before in an Amico segment. Then we come to the console, Ian. First of all, let me just say this about that console. I do not think if that came out and was in people's hands, they would have looked at it and said, wow, this was worth $200 or $250. Even the diehards, I don't think, would have been able to justify that. Mm-hmm. This thing had zero weight to it. The controller, I think, weighed about as much as the console did. Like, this thing was light. I tapped on the thin plastic. It's hollow. They didn't put like a weight in this thing. And that console, you can say, yeah, the OS wasn't finished on that version you looked at or whatever. The actual, like, this was a production quality model I was looking at. It was not 3D printed, the console.
Right.
There was nothing to it. It was like, you could tell, this is a gigantic charging port for two controllers. with like a fucking phone board inside. Like just by tapping it, and if I dropped that thing, I was afraid like it would crack the shell. I'm serious. Like there was nothing to this console when you held it in your hands. Like you can drop an NES 100 times and it'll still work.
Right.
That would not happen with this. This shell would be cracked if you did that.
I'm paying attention to you. I'm just readying another question.
So then I said to myself, okay, I got the controllers, Ian. This thing's a glorified docking port for the controllers. Let's put the controller in here. So I put the controller on there to see what happens. It's at an angle. It's one big like oval, like indented oval to put both controllers in, and each has their own at the base of the controller, the docking little contacts. I put it on to see what happened. They didn't slide down to the contacts. They stayed because there was so much weight. They stayed on the top of the incline above the docking area. So I put it down, and it did not sit like with a firm grip on the contacts.
It didn't sit flush with it.
It didn't sit flush. You can wiggle that shit around. You had to really make sure that the controller had a contact, like had a grip or was touching the contact. It wasn't like any of those old Wiimote ones you put down, like forget about. You put them in the stand, whatever, and they're fine.
Right. So basically, they didn't fit comfortably or flushly.
There was too much space around the controllers. There wasn't enough. It was too shallow so that they could stay up. And it wasn't like, it should have been like a slide. It should have been like, oh, when you put that in, Ian, it'll slide to the bottom, or like it will all the time hit that contact. No. So I'm picturing a world you could literally put this down, not looking, think you have it connecting with the contact, and it's not charging. Because I did as a test. I said, oh, put it down again. Put the controller down. It's not engineered to make sure that it's charging when you're putting the controller down in the spot. I'm talking amateur hour shit. Like when they 3D printed that shit, they should have realized, wow, this is not foolproof. This does not work. What is this? There should have been individual slots, even though it would have looked worse, Ian, would not have looked like a foot bath anymore. They should have had individual slots for each controller.
Yeah.
With like almost like only like a half inch in between, and a better angle to make sure that they would be snug and charging. Like they needed a foolproof charging method on the console, and that did not exist on what I saw. I mean, and I was shocked. I was shocked.
And that's crazy too, because if you're thinking this is a production shell, like they can't go back and fix that.
It was a production. It was one used with their mold, because I could see the mold. There was a mark on it that someone pointed out to me to say, "Hey, this was a bad mold." But you can tell there's a mark on the front of the console that you can tell. Oh, this was a mold. That was not 3D printed. It was from a mold. It was produced from a mold, the plastic. So, I think what would have happened, the best case if this came out, this is the best case. It would have been a fly by night, because there would have been so much issues, so much disappointment in the quality of this thing. Cheap, shoddy quality of this thing. Between the console and the over-engineered controllers. I think this thing, if this was used heavily by people, I don't even talk about what happens when the batteries run out of juice eventually, if it would have been even feasible to replace the batteries or anything. I think you would have had this point that would have happened with this thing, where all the controllers, or something happens with the console, or you get a higher amount of people busting it by accident, or they drop this thing, or you would have had a lot more problems with this than you should have when it came out. On all spectrums.
I mean, the way you make it sound, like, I feel like the console shell would crack pretty easily.
It wasn't the thinnest, but like, I would not have dropped that and expect that to survive, that shell. And maybe it would have. I wasn't going to test it with that one. But yeah, it was just the fact that they thought this could be a competitor. Like, I always caution on using the scam word when it comes to this, but this would have been a terrible product had it launched. This would have been like, this should never have been approved to come out. Like, this is irresponsible to make this a commercial product. I will say that, if it had come out in that form.
My last question was going to be, but I can't find it now. And I was just looking at it, and it's not coming up on Intellivision. Do you remember that picture of Tommy like assembling an Amico?
It wasn't Tommy. It was some person doing
no, there is a picture of him standing in front of one in process too. It looked like it had like 2 boards and a couple other stuff there, and it looked like it would be less than feather light. I guess without the picture, it doesn't matter. But I'm wondering if you think it was either an earlier version, or if some of those boards were bullshit to make it look more complicated in there, and they weren't actually in there.
No, but like the boards are like the Snapdragon board's not big, right? It's like a cell phone size one.
Yeah. How big was the console roughly?
It's like this. Like 16 inches.
So probably now that I'm
inches?
thinking about the size of it, yeah. So maybe it's just not entirely full of stuff.
It's like double the size.
I bet you the outside parts would have felt really hollow and light if you tapped them, whereas the inside might have been more solid.
From what I know, there's a board. The Snapdragon board is the guts. Mm-hmm. You have the LED board running that shit, and you have the controller board, I believe.
Okay.
I believe that's what that is.
And I think we found out that one board was the LED board because we asked questions about it when we saw that photo, and someone said that's an LED board.
Yeah, but it's still there's nothing in the console.
Right.
It's an external AC adapter, so that's not inside. There's nothing to the console.
Right.
It's a cell phone console.
Right. No, I get what you're saying now.
Throw your cell phone into a giant plastic board, and that's the weight this kind of felt like. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. So anyway, that was that. And we'll get more information one way or the other about this console and what it's comprised of. But people were enjoying me. It was a small crowd. People wanted to see me handling this thing and I guess see my reaction. It was only for a couple minutes, but I got to at least, I was like literally tapping and like hearing, like, oh, there's nothing in this console. It's just a giant shell.
I couldn't make it to PRGE this year. I had things I had to do, but I think that's the only thing that I'm a little jealous of is I would have loved to have held the controller. I mean, in the console too, but I really just want to hold that controller someday.
I think you'll get a chance.